My wife humiliated me in front of everyone at our Christmas party, and now I'm questioning if I even want to stay in this marriage. I'm feeling trapped, and every part of me is telling me to walk away. It's been a tough year, but we made it to Christmas, and my wife and I were hosting the family party. We've been married for 10 years and have 3 beautiful kids, ages 3, 5, and 8. The party was our chance to close out the year on a happy note, surrounded by siblings, parents, and grandparents. Everything was going great. Everyone was laughing, sharing stories, and catching up. It felt good to finally unwind. Would saying divorce really be the end? Or just the beginning of something worse? By the end of the night, I'll admit I got pretty drunk. I was enjoying myself, maybe too much. At one point, I got up to go to the bathroom, but I wasn't as steady as I thought. I tripped, and the glass of water in my hand fell and shattered on the floor. I froze for a second, thinking about how my wife had already warned me earlier not to overdo it with the drinking. I could practically feel her glare, but I didn't wait around. I cleaned it up immediately, hoping to avoid an issue. As I was finishing, my wife quietly told me to come to the bedroom. Her voice was calm, but I knew she was upset. When we got there, everything spilled out. Her frustration, her anger, her embarrassment. She was furious. Her voice was so loud it echoed, and I couldn't even get a word in. She kept yelling about how she had told me not to drink too much, how I was making a fool of myself, and how I should have known better. I was panicked, not because of what she was saying, but because I knew everyone could hear. I whispered, "Please, let's talk about this later. Everyone can hear you." But that only seemed to fuel her anger. I felt helpless, humiliated. Eventually, I apologized over and over, just to make it stop. And when I did, she seemed to cool down. She walked out of the room like nothing had happened. I stayed behind for a moment, trying to collect myself. When I finally stepped out, the tension in the air was unbearable. Everyone was avoiding eye contact, and I could tell they'd heard everything. They left soon after, awkward and silent. The next morning, my wife apologized, profusely. She broke down in tears, clinging to me, saying how sorry she was, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. I got up, went to our kids, and focused on them instead. Thankfully, they'd gone to bed early and hadn't heard any of it. I spent the day making sure they had a great Christmas. For them, it was perfect. For me, it felt like I was just going through the motions. Later that night, when I was settling on the couch to sleep, my wife came to me, begging me to come to bed. She was crying again, pleading for us to fix things. But I couldn't. I told her I needed space. I told her that every time she pushed, I felt myself pulling away. And then, I said something I never thought I'd say. I mentioned divorce. Her reaction broke my heart, but I felt numb. I didn't want to say it, but it was the truth. After 10 years, I never thought I'd feel this way. But now, I can't stop thinking about it. Update 1. The days after Christmas were tense. I kept my distance from my wife as much as I could, sleeping on the couch and throwing myself into taking care of the kids. They didn't know what was happening, and I didn't want to disrupt their holiday spirit. My wife tried to talk to me several times, but I wasn't ready. Every time she opened her mouth, I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and this overwhelming numbness. I couldn't bring myself to engage. I couldn't forget how she shouted at me, how small and humiliated I felt in front of our family. It's strange how something so seemingly small can become so big. It wasn't just about her yelling. It was about everything it represented. Years of little things building up that I didn't even notice until that moment. All the times I felt dismissed, all the times I apologized just to keep the peace, all the times I felt like I had to shrink myself to avoid a fight. It all came rushing in that night, and now I can't stop thinking about it. She's been doing everything she can to fix this. She's apologized more times than I can count, but each apology feels like a reminder of what happened. She cries often now, and it's hard to watch. Part of me wants to comfort her, but the bigger part of me is too hurt. I've never felt this distant from her before. 2 nights ago, we had our first real conversation since the incident. She came to me after the kids were in bed and asked if we could talk. I didn't want to, but I could tell she'd been holding it in all day. She started by apologizing again, saying she knew she crossed a line and that she didn't mean to embarrass me. She said she'd been stressed with the holidays and planning the party, and that she felt like I wasn't taking her efforts seriously by getting drunk. I told her I understood that she was stressed, but it didn't justify screaming at me like that in front of everyone. I told her how humiliated I felt, how I couldn't look anyone in the eye after that. She cried while I was talking and said she hated herself for what she did. She kept saying, "I just snapped, I didn't mean it." I told her I wasn't sure if I could move past it. I said it felt like this wasn't just about the shouting, but about how she's treated me for years. That hit her hard. She asked what I meant, and I hesitated because I didn't want to start another fight. But then I decided to be honest. I told her I felt like I'm always walking on eggshells around her, that I'm constantly afraid of upsetting her or doing something wrong. I told her I felt more like a co-parent and roommate than a husband lately, and that night at the party was just the tipping point. She didn't say anything for a long time, just sat there crying. Finally, she said she didn't realize I felt that way and asked why I never told her. I said it was because I didn't think it would change anything. She promised she'd change, that she'd do whatever it takes to fix this. She asked if I still loved her, and I couldn't give her an answer. That was the hardest part. Seeing the look on her face when I said, "I don't know." The next day, she started looking for therapists. She said she wants to go to individual therapy and also suggested couples counseling. I told her I'd think about it. Right now, I'm not even sure if I want to fix things. I don't know if this is something I can come back from. Our families have been reaching out too, which is another layer of stress. My mom called to ask if everything was okay because she noticed the tension at the party. She said she thought my wife was out of line and that I shouldn't let her treat me like that. My dad, on the other hand, said I need to be a man and work it out for the kids' sake. That comment pissed me off more than anything. It's not about being a man. It's about feeling respected and valued in my own marriage. My wife's sister called her after the party, and apparently, she told her everything. Now her family knows, and they've been sending messages saying they hope we can work it out. One of her brothers even texted me to apologize on her behalf, which felt weird and unnecessary. I didn't respond. The kids have been my only source of comfort through all of this. Spending time with them reminds me of what's really important. I took them to the park yesterday, and for a couple of hours, it felt like things were normal. But then I came home, and the weight of it all hit me again. I don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me wants to fight for our marriage because we've built a life together, and I don't want to throw it away. But another part of me feels like I've already checked out. I keep thinking about how she looked at me that night, how she didn't care that everyone could hear, how she only stopped when I apologized. That image keeps playing in my head, and I don't know how to make it go away. I've been reading articles about marriage and forgiveness, trying to figure out what to do. Some say forgiveness is a choice, something you have to actively work on. But how do you forgive someone when you don't know if you even want to? She keeps trying. She made my favorite dinner last night, and she's been extra affectionate, but it feels forced. I can tell she's scared, and I hate that I'm the reason she feels that way. But at the same time, I can't forget how she made me feel. We haven't told the kids anything, and I don't plan to unless it becomes necessary. They're too young to understand, and I don't want them to feel like they're losing their family. I know I need to make a decision soon. Staying in this limbo isn't fair to either of us, but I'm scared of making the wrong choice. What if I decide to leave and regret it? What if I stay and things never change? For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. She's giving me space like I asked, but I can see how much it's hurting her. She looks like she's barely sleeping. I guess I'm not either. Everything feels so uncertain, and I hate it. I used to feel so sure about us, about our future. Now I don't know anything. Update 2. It's been about a week since I last wrote, and a lot has happened. I've had more time to reflect on everything, and I wish I could say I feel clearer about where I stand, but the truth is, I'm still stuck in this emotional limbo. Every day feels like a roller coaster, with moments where I think we might be able to fix this and others where I'm almost certain it's over. My wife has been relentless in trying to show me how sorry she is, She started therapy this week, and she's made a big deal of telling me about it, how it went, what she talked about, and what she's learning. I appreciate the effort, but it also feels overwhelming. I told her I don't need constant updates. I just need time to see if this changes anything. She looked hurt, but she said she understood. She's also been walking on eggshells around me, which is ironic because I told her that's how I've felt for years. She's overly careful with her tone, her words, even her movements, as if one wrong step will push me further away. It's exhausting to watch because it's like she's trying so hard to fix something that might already be broken beyond repair. We had another serious conversation a few nights ago after the kids went to bed. She asked me if I've thought more about couples counseling, and I told her I wasn't sure. I explained that I feel like I'm doing all this for the kids, not for us, and that I'm afraid we might just be prolonging the inevitable. That hit her hard. She broke down crying again and kept asking what she could do to fix this. She said she'd do anything, but I didn't know what to tell her. I said, I don't think this is something you can just fix. She kept asking me if I still loved her, and I finally told her the truth. I don't know. I could see how much that hurt her, but I had to be honest. It's not that I don't care about her, I do. She's the mother of my kids, and we've built a life together. But right now, I can't feel that connection anymore. I don't know if it's gone for good, or if it's buried under all the hurt and resentment. The next morning, she told me she'd booked an appointment for couples counseling. She said she didn't want to pressure me to go, but wanted to have it set up in case I changed my mind. It feels like she's putting all her hope into this counseling, and that scares me. What if it doesn't work? What if we go, and it just confirms that we're not meant to be together anymore? On top of all this, my wife's family has been reaching out more. Her sister called to check in on me, which felt weird. She said she's worried about her sister and hopes I can find it in my heart to forgive her. I didn't say much because I didn't want to open up to her, but it was uncomfortable. Her parents have also been extra nice lately, sending food over and offering to watch the kids. It's like they're all tiptoeing around the situation, trying to help without outright saying they know something's wrong. My family, on the other hand, has been more blunt. My mom told me she thinks my wife's behavior at the party was a red flag, and that I need to consider if this marriage is healthy for me. She's always been protective of me, so I'm not surprised, but it's still hard to hear. My dad keeps telling me to man up and figure it out, which is infuriating. It's not about being a man. It's about figuring out what's best for me and my kids. The kids have been the only bright spot in all of this. I've been spending as much time with them as I can, trying to give them a sense of normalcy. We've done movie nights, trips to the park, and even built a fort in the living room. They're too young to understand what's going on, and I want to keep it that way for as long as possible. But even with the kids, I can't escape the weight of this situation. Every time I see them, I think about how this will affect them if we split up. Will they blame me? Will they resent her? Will they grow up in a broken home? These thoughts keep me up at night, and I don't have answers. Last night I had a moment of weakness. My wife came to the couch where I was sleeping and sat down next to me. She didn't say anything at first, just sat there quietly. Then she said, "I miss you." Her voice broke when she said it, and for a second, I wanted to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I couldn't. I told her, "I miss us too, but I don't know if we can get back to that." She started crying softly and asked if she could sit with me for a while. I said, "Okay," and we just sat there in silence. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to try counseling, to see if we can rebuild what we had, but another part of me feels like it's too late, like too much damage has been done. I keep going back to that night at the party, how she yelled at me in front of everyone, how small and humiliated I felt. That moment keeps playing in my head, and I don't know how to move past it. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. I agreed to go to one session of counseling, but I'm not making any promises beyond that. I need to see if there's anything left to fight for, because right now, I'm not sure there is. Update 3. The first counseling session was today. I didn't want to go. If I'm being honest, I almost didn't. I sat in the car for 10 minutes before walking into the office, debating whether I should just leave and tell her I couldn't make it. But I went because I promised her I'd try, even if I don't know what trying looks like anymore. The counselor was a soft-spoken woman who seemed nice enough, but I hated being there. It felt awkward, like I was airing all my personal business to a stranger who didn't know either of us or what we've been through. She started by asking what brought us to therapy, and my wife spoke first. She said she felt like she'd destroyed our marriage with her behavior and that she was willing to do whatever it took to fix it. She started crying halfway through her explanation, and I just sat there staring at the floor. When it was my turn, I told the counselor I didn't know if I even wanted to save the marriage. I said I felt disconnected, like something broke that night at the party, and I wasn't sure it could be repaired. My wife looked devastated when I said that, but I couldn't sugarcoat it. This is how I feel, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to make her feel better. The counselor asked me to explain why I felt that way, and it all came pouring out. I talked about how I felt like an afterthought for years, how I've had to suppress my feelings to avoid conflict, how the party was just the final straw in a long line of issues. I didn't yell or get angry, but I could feel the weight of everything I was saying. My wife cried silently through most of it. Then it was her turn to respond. She admitted she's been controlling, dismissive, and quick to anger. She said she's always felt like she needed to manage everything, and when I messed up, it felt like confirmation that she couldn't rely on me. She said she didn't realize how much she was hurting me by doing that, and now she's terrified it's too late to fix it. The counselor asked her what she wanted out of this, and she said she wanted me to trust her again, to believe that she can change. She said she knows she's been unfair to me, but she's desperate to make things right. I couldn't even look at her when she said that because I don't know if I believe her. The session ended with the counselor asking us both to think about what we want for ourselves and for our family. She said it's okay if we don't have all the answers yet, but we need to be honest with each other and with ourselves. My wife asked if I'd go to another session, and I said I'd think about it. When we got home, my wife tried to talk to me about the session, but I told her I needed time to process. I went to the backyard and just sat there for a while, staring at nothing. I feel so drained, like every conversation about this takes a little more out of me. Later that night, my wife came to me again, this time calmer. She said she's grateful I went to the session and that she's proud of me for opening up, even if it was hard to hear. She asked if there was anything she could do to make things easier for me, and I told her I didn't know. I don't have the answers she's looking for, and that makes me feel guilty. She's trying so hard, but I can't give her what she wants right now. I've been thinking a lot about the kids and what this means for them. I know that staying together for the kids isn't always the right choice, but the thought of splitting up and disrupting their lives kills me. They deserve stability, and I don't want them growing up in a house full of tension. But at the same time, I don't want them to think it's normal to settle for a relationship where you don't feel respected or valued. I've also been reflecting on my own role in all of this. I'm not perfect, and I know I've made mistakes. I've been passive in our marriage, avoiding conflict instead of addressing problems head-on. Maybe if I'd spoken up sooner, things wouldn't have gotten this bad. But even if that's true, it doesn't erase what happened or how I feel now. I haven't decided if I'll go to another counseling session yet. Part of me feels like it's pointless, like we're just delaying the inevitable. But another part of me wonders if there's a chance, however small, that we can rebuild. I don't know if that's hope or just fear of starting over. For now, I'm focusing on the kids and trying to take things one day at a time. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I need to figure out what's best for me and for them. My wife has been giving me space when I ask for it, but I can tell it's killing her. She keeps saying she's scared I'm going to leave, and honestly, I don't know if I am or not. It feels like every decision I make is loaded with so much weight, like one wrong move could ruin everything. This situation has made me realize how much I've been neglecting my own needs for the sake of keeping the peace. I've been so focused on making sure everyone else is okay that I forgot to take care of myself. Maybe that's part of why I feel so disconnected now. I'm not ready to make any big decisions yet, but I know I can't stay in this limbo forever. Something has to change, whether it's us working things out or going our separate ways. I just hope I make the right choice for everyone involved.